Chapter 8, Wood Hibiscus. In this life, Jiang Xuning originally had no intention of having contact with Zhou Yunzi again. But now I suddenly bumped into Xie Wei. She must protect herself. Although Zhou Yunzi is a villain, the advantage of intersecting with villains is that as long as it is profitable, he can go the same way and take what he needs. Today, she came to Zhang Boyu, holding a copy of Kindergarten Qianglin as an account book, and gave the people in the house this matter, but she was afraid that she would be taken into the eyes of Xie Wei. Even if it's not a sophisticated calculation, it has nothing to do with the word not smart. In the last life, she really had no heart. I don't know anything about the capital and the court. 14 years old and less than 15 years old, she is hesitating about her own experience and fate, and she doesn't know what her strange father and mother will look like in Beijing, and she also encounters the chaos of the heavenly sect, and Xie Wei is trapped in the wilderness. A heart is completely frightened and panicked. Where does he have the heart to speculate on the deep meaning behind the words of a person's illness? She'd heard it all, but really forgot. Later, I racked my brains to think about it, but I could barely remember the words. Shen Lang's character is unbearable and the people of Li are people, and the respect of the 9th five-year plan is also a person. Even so, Xie Wei still tried her 3 times before he gave up, although 4 years had passed in this life. After seeing her act today, he might not have looked back and thought about it, suspecting that she actually remembered what he said, but he was used to pretending to be stupid and getting by. The courtyard in the afternoon is very quiet. Thin branches hanging from the trellises. The shadow of the sun on the west slope covered the corridor like a red veil. In front of the steps, Jiang Xuning instructed Tanger to find Zhou Yunzi, but he sat under the corridor for a long time, and finally slowly calmed down. There are 3 ways to deal with the current situation. First, continue to play dumb. After all, she only showed her performance first, and Lu Wei returned to Lu Wei, but the pot was thrown to Yan Lin, and she also said to Zhang Boyu that Yan Lin taught her. Yan Lin's side is not even more worried about revealing the stuffing, but she is afraid that if she kills someone and turns around and says that Yan Lin did it, Yan Lin will recognize it. And if there is no accident in the Yanji Marquis mansion, Yan Lin can also shelter her. The question is, will Xie Wei believe it? Second, learn from Yu Fangyan and take refuge in Xie Wei. This devil in the skin of a saint was the big winner in her previous life, and he was not a murderer except for the Xiao clan, the royal family, and the rebels of the celestial sect. But there are problems. Yan Lin has the Yanji Marquis mansion, and the military power is in his hands. Yu Fangyan is a firm in the world, and he is rich in the first party. What about her? What skills and bargaining chips does she have to make Xie Wei take a fancy to her and accept her surrender? Third, if you don't do anything, you just work against Xie Wei. She knows his biggest secret, even his final plan, and even knows some movements in the court, and has the advantage of being reborn to give the prophet a prescient, and can take the lead in many things in the future. But the question is, now Xie Wei is an emperor, she is still just a boudoir girl, and her status and power are very different. I am afraid that she will be killed before she can start to fight against others. And Xie Wei's resourcefulness is alive, but the things she knows about her past life are dead. How do you know that she will definitely be able to fight? Yu Fangyan often said that all roads lead to the capital, but now Jiang Xuning looks before and after. All roads are narrow dead ends. Of course, there is a fourth way. No matter how powerful Xie Wei is, she is also a man. She was able to use women's means to coax men to turn around in her last life, and she can naturally try to coax this scheming emperor in this life. If Xie Wei can become her minister. It's just that as soon as this idea came to her, she couldn't help but shudder, and immediately pressed it down, and said to herself, "No, you can't have such a terrible thought." Xie Wei and Shen Zhu, Yan Lin, Zhou Yunzi, and even Zhang Shat. It's not the same. Zhang Suning will not forget that in her last life, when she felt that she was cornered, she had such a thought. She changed into a goose yellow palace dress at night, made up bright and moving, and brought a cup of boiled soup from the imperial dining room to Xinyuan Pavilion. However, Xie Wei raised his eyes to look at her. Seeing her clothes and makeup, her eyes were dark, and the tail of her eyebrows was almost imperceptibly raised. He had already seen through her, and smiled at her faintly. Niang is self-respecting. That night she was so ashamed that she simply ran away. Now, as long as she thinks of the scene at that time, Zhang Suning still has the urge to dig a pit and bury herself. How can she have to die and experience it a second time? In front of people like Xie Wei, that is self-inflicted humiliation. So, in her current situation, the best and most feasible methods are the first and the second. As for the third type, Zhang Suning has directly drawn it with a dead end. She will never want to go against Xie Wei if she is not forced to the desperate situation of being killed. After thinking about all this, it became very important to see Zhou Yunzi. Whether it is the Yanji Marquis Mansion's involvement in the old case of King Pingnan, which will happen soon, or simply for the purpose of making himself useful and having bargaining chips. It's just that Zhang Suning didn't wait for Zhou Yunzi. Tang Er hasn't come back yet. A mother-in-law came not far in front. As soon as she saw her sitting under the porch, she smiled a little on her face, came up and saluted her, and said, "The old slave was about to go to find the second girl, but I didn't expect the second girl to sit here. Madam heard that the master called the people in your house to fight and kill, and I don't know what the situation is, so I asked the old slave to come and invite the second girl to meet and ask. This is what Meng Shi is waiting for." Zhang Suning didn't have much impression of this mother-in-law, but she could guess it by listening to her words. It's just that she suddenly bumped into Xie Wei and was upset, and at this moment she wanted to see Zhou Yunzi again, so she asked her to see Meng Shi, and she was really not very happy in her heart, and her face was not very good, so she only responded coldly, "I know, I'll go." Meng Shi was talking to Zhang Suiwai in his room. When Zhang Suning found the maid and servant woman in Zhang Boyu's cooking house came over, both of them were a little surprised. Meng Shi knew that Zhang Suning didn't come back last night, so he just called Zhang Suning to come, first, to ask about the situation in front of him, to see what his daughter who was raised by a concubine was thinking, and secondly, there should be a limit if there are no rules. What is the matter if the girl who has not left the pavilion does not return overnight? After a while, Zhang Suning came. She was not kind to her biological mother Meng, and Meng didn't like her lax rules and indulgence, so she was unfamiliar with Meng's attitude, and when she saw Zhang Suiwai present, her voice became more and more dull when she saluted, and she was routine, "My daughter asks her mother for peace." Zhang Suiwai next to her was directly ignored by her. As soon as Meng Shi heard that she had a grudge against Sister Hui'er, the two willow eyebrows that were delicately drawn frowned, but it was not easy to talk about her, so he only said, "Get up, what's going on today, and suddenly fight with the maid?" Zhang Suning replied, "They have been unruly in the house for a long time, and they are becoming more and more rampant today. When I went out with Yan Lin yesterday, I mentioned that Yan Lin taught her daughter a way to treat them, so I came back to have today's thing. If she accidentally disturbs her mother, it is the daughter's sin. When others mention Yan Lin, they have to call it Little Marquis, or Yan Shizi, even Zhang Boyu and Meng Shi are no exception. After all, the Yanji Marquis Mansion is powerful, and he is in charge of the army, and he has a sacred heart, not everyone can afford it. But Zhang Suning is good." Opened and closed her mouth to call her name, which shows how conniving Yan Lin is to her. Meng Shi listened, his brows furrowed a little deeper. Although Yan Lin's background can be regarded as one of the best in the entire capital, except for the children of the Xiao family of the Qinqiu mansion, no one can stand out, but this is also a bold Meng Lang. Sister Ning was quite obedient when she just picked it up. But since I got to know Yan Lin, I dressed up as a man and went out to mess around under the name of Young Master Zhang Mansion, and I had to cover up for her. Meng Shi felt that it was necessary to say, in the past, when you went out with Yan Shizi, although I felt that it was too much, but after all, the master had acquiesced in this matter, and I was not good at it. However, tolerance is not connivance, Sister Ning, you have to have a number in your own heart. The eldest girl's family didn't return overnight outside, fooling around all day. If the matter spreads, after all, you have a son to carry for you, and since you have done it, you don't want to take those gossips in your eyes. But your sister is also in the boudoir to be married now, it doesn't matter if your own reputation is bad, outsiders always mention the Zhang family girl, so where will your sister go? Meng's words are reasonable. If what she did got out, it would indeed affect Zhang Suiwai. Reason told Zhang Suining that she shouldn't feel that there was anything wrong with this, but a sense of anger came up in her heart, which made her quietly clench the palm hanging by her side, and only said with her eyes, "What my mother said is that my daughter will be more cautious in the future." Meng Shi listened to her perfunctory answer, and the face of the person standing here was like this, and he was a little angry for a while. Snap! She pressed down the teacup in her hand and was about to reprimand her. Zhang Suiwai next to her saw the scene, her eyelids jumped, and she sighed in her heart, only to feel that although her mother was for her good, such words and harsh reproaches undoubtedly pushed her sister to the opposite side of them, and this account may be counted on her again. Where do you dare to sit back and watch Meng's seizure? Zhang Suiwai hurriedly held Meng Shi's hand and intercepted her words in time. You must know that my sister may not have even listened to Yan Shizi's words in the past, but now she is willing to listen to others to take care of things in her own house, which shows that her heart is mature and stable. Yan Shizi can make my sister better, so why should my mother worry about any gossip? My sister's marriage in the future is decent, which is also a good thing for the house, and my marriage may not be stained with my sister's light in the future, and I also ask my mother to relax. Today, I encountered the trouble of Wang Xing's family, but my sister came forward to relieve me. Zhang Suining said in her heart that it was just seeing Wang Xing's family talking rampant nonsense behind her back and taking her things, but it had nothing to do with Zhang Suiwai. At this moment, he looked coldly at her and appeased Meng with nonsense. After hearing this, Meng Shi thought that this was indeed the truth. It's just that it's difficult to take back the words she said before, and when she raised her eyes, she saw Zhang Suining standing there expressionlessly, although her facial features were a little like her, but the charm at the corners of her eyes and eyebrows reminded her of Wanyang's slut. She lost her mood for a moment, waved her hand and said, "That's it, anyway, your father is in charge of your affairs. Go back, and don't have to say hello at night." "Yes, my daughter is leaving." Meng didn't want to look at her more, and Zhang Suining was too lazy to stay. She bowed cleanly and withdrew. At this time, it will be late and the sunset will be bright. Under the wall behind the west chamber, there is a piece of wood hibiscus, and the pink flowers are dark or shallow, illuminated by the sun, looking gorgeous. She passed by with Lianer below, and a wooden hibiscus suddenly hit her head. The blooming wooden hibiscus rolled down. Zhang Suining subconsciously reached out to catch it, and then raised her head to take a look, and saw Yan Lin wearing a black robe, with a leather belt around her waist, and the big llama was sitting on the wall full of wood hibiscus, bending one leg, holding a sword in the other, and smiling at her. Today's lecture ended early, but I was pulled by the saint and said for a long time, and I only came out of the palace at this time. The day after tomorrow is Chongyang, there is a lantern festival in Beijing, I want to take you to see it. The sunset fell on the flowers and also on his cheeks. Jiang Xuning was suddenly shaken and in a trance. After a while, I realized what he said, Chongyang Lantern Festival. That was when Shen Zai, the eldest princess of Liang, who followed Shen Ju out of the palace in the previous life, met her dressed as a man and fell in love with her.